There's a great man, a great leader in Europe, Viktor Orban. He's the prime minister of Hungary. He's a very great leader, very strong man. Some people don't like him because he's too strong. It's nice to have a strong man running your country.
Greetings from New Hampshire, where the Republican frontrunner would like to talk about kitchen table issues like the strong man in charge of Hungary. Very obvious. Closing message there. And making American presidents immune from criminal prosecution, which would come in handy for Donald Trump. So no, this is not your usual New Hampshire primary Eve. We're looking at that tomorrow. Joining us now is the usual host of the 9 p.m. hour. I know you've been missing her already. And the author of Prequel, A Fight Against American Fascism, a terrific book about World War II era history. My friend and colleague, Rachel Maddow. We are not going to make you use your voice too much, but thank you so much for talking with us this evening. So, Rachel, let me start there. I've been sort of saying tongue-in-cheek that this is his closing message, talking about that this is Trump's closing message, talking about Viktor Orban as he's campaigning a little bit here in New Hampshire. But you've studied authoritarians quite a bit. You've talked about them quite a bit. You've educated all of us quite a bit on it. Is this really about winning votes in the New Hampshire primary?
Liz, well, first of all, Jen, I apologize for my voice, and I'm grateful for you having me here. I am trying to hold it together health-wise so that I can have a voice for tomorrow night's coverage, because I'm so excited to be part of that. But that's why I sound like a mess right now. On the Viktor Orban thing, listen, I think that there's a very simple reason that Trump is making that the closing argument in what may be the last contested primary. And it's because that's really what he's offering. I mean, this is the special sauce. Donald Trump is not leading the Republican Party and leading the Republican field of candidates because of his youthful vigor or because of his policy preferences or because of his eloquence, right? There's none of that is going on. What he's offering is what he both sort of inherently offers and now more and more explicitly offers, which is, if you pick me, that'll be the end of politics. And you won't have to deal with politics anymore. You won't have to deal with contested elections. You won't have to deal with contests or divisions when it comes to power. You'll have a strongman leader and I'll just do what I want. And won't that be a lot simpler? That's what he's offering. That strongman model is what the Republican base is enthused about. And that is something that sets him apart from every other Republican candidate. And I think that we're naive to think that he's tricking people into picking him and then surprise, he's going to act like a dictator. What he's offering is strongman leadership, the end of politics, the end of elections, the end or the sidelining or domesticating, as Ruth Ben-Ghiat says, of the judiciary and the Congress. He'll be the man in charge and he'll get it done. And that's what he's selling. And that's what they are very eager to buy.
It seems very much like that. I do think of him as a marathoning orator, but, you know, everybody has a different view on Trump and his strengths. But, Rachel, the question that I sometimes think about, I know you've talked about a fair amount, is how did we get here? I mean, how did we get to this stage where you have this person who has such a control over a political party, but even beyond the politics of it, where that appeal of the strongman argument, this worship of dictators, is so appealing to such a large swath of the country?
I mean, I think there's ways. Well, first of all, we should be humble about it and recognize that there aren't very many 250-year-old democracies in the world. And democracy is hard. And most of the world is governed under authoritarian governance. And there's nothing magic about the American populace that makes us immune to the promises of strongman leadership. I mean, that's part of why I've done some of the history stuff that I've done, like in Prequel, talking about the lead up to World War II, to talk about how susceptible Americans were to the same kind of authoritarian messages that were working on the population in Germany, and that were working on the population in Italy, and that were working on the population in Spain. I mean, I know it's a cliche to note it, but Hitler was elected, right? I mean, Mussolini didn't have to literally march on Rome. It was a figurative thing because he was installed as the heart of the government. And so these messages, excuse me, they have appeal. And there's ways that you can drive a populace toward them. You can denigrate the government. You can say that government itself is the problem. You can make it so the legislative branch never works and is seen as an object of ridicule, pity, and hostility rather than as one of our three branches of government. You can challenge the rule of law and say that judges are all biased against people like you and that the legal system doesn't work for people like us and that we should denigrate the courts and the law and the legal system in a way that falls down along partisan or identitarian lines. I mean, all of those things help. Flirting with the kinds of conspiracy theories that make people look to mythical fantasies for solving their problems instead of actual government work. That helps. Flirting with paramilitary violence, where you bring violence into the political sphere and people are too intimidated. Normal people are too intimidated to engage in normal political behavior. All of that helps. All of that sort of shunts a populace toward authoritarian messaging as the only solution, as the only thing that'll work.
That was dark and real and honest and authentic, just like you are about these issues. Are there lessons from history about what might work or what is effective pushback? I mean, I'm thinking, we talked earlier in the show about the protests in Germany. What works? What can be done in this country to push back on this movement?
I mean, the history works, I think, on a couple of different levels. It's interesting to me watching those protests in Germany this weekend. A couple of things about that struck me. One is the reason those huge crowds, more than 1 million people, like 1.5 million people turned out in Germany, crowds so big. In some places, the crowds were so much larger than the permitted marches. The police had to shut them down for security reasons. The reason people came out in Germany is because of reporting from a secret meeting where the far-right party in Germany, which is polling very strongly in Germany right now, had secretly discussed mass deportations of migrants in Germany. Millions of people all deported all at once. And it was exposed in sort of bombshell investigative reporting. But, that's what Trump and Stephen Miller are offering openly. And maybe people aren't out in the streets for it because it wasn't bombshell reporting. They just said that that's what they wanted to do. But that policy that the far right AfD party is working on in Germany is exactly what Trump and Stephen Miller are talking about doing here as soon as Trump is put back in office. They're literally talking about putting millions of people in camps in the United States. A revelation like that in Germany got Germans out by the hundreds of thousands and more than 1 million over the weekend saying, this is Nazi stuff. We can never see this come back in the civilized world. Whereas we've just absorbed it, that it's something that Trump is going to do. So it operates that way. But then there's also what those crowds are asking for. They're asking for the German courts to ban AfD, to ban that party as an anti-democratic party. And Germany does have some history with that. In the post-war years, 1952, they banned parties that wanted to use the democratic process to come back in and dismantle democracy. They haven't done it since then, but they're ready to do it now with this iteration of the far right. And we're obviously considering that with potential insurrectionist being back on the ballot in multiple states.
Very much running for office. History repeats itself, as you often remind us, but also there's kind of history or live things happening around the world that are important for us to also watch. Now, finally, we have to let you rest your voice, Rachel. I know you could talk about this all night, but what are you doing for yourself? Do we need to send you chamomile, lemon, ginger, echinacea? We'll deliver it to you. Everybody needs you leading the coverage tomorrow night.
I am I just have the thing that everybody else has, like I had COVID for the first time ever in October, and then it took me like a long time to get over it. And I had some other things. Now I've just got this cold that it seems like everybody, at least on the East Coast, has. And I'm a terrible patient. I've got like my daytime goo and my nighttime goo. And then I just sleep and drink tea and it never gets better. But if anybody out there has the secret sauce, I'll take it. But in the meantime, I'm just trying to rest up.
That's what you heard her. If you have secret sauce for her, we're going to collect it and we're going to give it to her so she can be here leading the coverage tomorrow night. Rachel Maddow, thank you as always. Hope you feel better and take care of yourself tonight. Looking forward to seeing you for our primary coverage tomorrow night.